Let's see if Colin Nixon thinks he is going to jail, and if he is, what the impact of that would be. Because if anybody knows, Garland knows. Garland, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. It's come to something, isn't it, when the last president of the United States, and maybe the next one, is convicted in a court for giving money to a hooker. If that was a crime, there'd be quite a few Americans on American presidents on trial for that. What's your take on the whole circus?
Well, for starters, Hillary Clinton would definitely be in jail. And I mean that literally for this reason. In 2022, the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, fined Hillary Clinton $8,000 for misreporting the money that they paid for the Steele dossier as legal services. And her campaign was based out of New York City. So according to Alvin Bragg, this is the exact same thing that Donald Trump is accused of. And might I add, it's Donald Trump is allegedly in furtherance of a further crime. Well, it is very clear that the Clinton campaign they were acting in an attempt to influence the election. In fact, there was there was information that was passed from the CIA to President Obama that the Clintons were going to attempt to paint Donald Trump as a Russian operative in order to take the focus away from them for the emails. So the bottom line is this: it's clear. If it's Hillary Clinton, she gets fined $8,000. If it's Donald Trump, he gets convicted. Now, it would be normally one would think that an elderly defendant with no prior criminal history in a nonviolent crime, that there's no way in Manhattan that there would be jail time. But by the same token, one would think that there would be no way that Donald Trump would be charged with this crime. So there is a possibility there could be jail time at this time. I would argue this, and based on the things that we're hearing in the street, the voices in the wind, Donald Trump will win this election. If, in fact, this is a valid, normal election, Donald Trump would win this. However, the lengths that the deep state have gone to stop Donald Trump are to such an extent that, we have no way of knowing what machinations they'll use to stop him, how far they'll go. But if it's a clean election, Donald Trump wins this. This only improves his chances. And by saying this, mainly because people hate this system so bad that there are people now looking at this saying, oh, really? You guys hate Donald Trump that bad? Great. I can get a punch at these people. Even though I don't like Donald Trump, maybe I can get a punch at the ruling elite just by voting for the guy that they really hate. And that is the dynamic that's real on the street in the United States.
He raised $200 million immediately after the verdict. If he keeps raising money at this rate, he's going to break all fundraising records. That seems to indicate that at least a section of the ruling class, the Adelsons and so on, are right behind him. Is that countervailing force involved in a struggle with what you might call the liberal America, and who wins?
Well, yeah, certainly what we have is, what has been seen many times in empires like this, and that is, various factions of the ruling elite are fighting. But then I think the big part of it is whether or not the American people will have their say. And, I hate to put it this way, but the reality of it is this: if the American people have their say at the voting booth, Donald Trump will win. And it's not because Donald Trump is the second coming of FDR by any stretch of the imagination. It's because I think what a lot of Americans are saying is not that Donald Trump has to win, but that Joe Biden and his team has to lose. And so I think the ruling elite are battling. I think, of course, the money is concentrated in so few hands that a few billionaires on behalf of Donald Trump could fund all of the money that he needs. But I don't think that money's going to be the big issue in America today. It's going to be whether or not we see an election in which the people have their say. And certainly the Biden team has not delivered to the American people in any way that would credit him for victory. And he won't get one unless they steal it. The sad part is, it seems to me, I can go to jail these days just for saying such a thing based on what's going on with Donald Trump right now.
God forbid, and let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's examine what would happen. First, if they sent him to jail, he'd be in manacles. He'd be the orange man in an orange jumpsuit. He'd have Secret Service protection, saving him from dropping the soap in the prison shower, and so on. That would become a real circus. But he could still run for president from jail, couldn't he?
Oh, absolutely. What he would become is, and what he is to some extent, he's already started making this point, is a political prisoner. That's what he would be. He would be the ultimate political prisoner. But as you brought up earlier, Eugene Debs ran in 1920 from prison. And basically what the Supreme Court has found is that other than that no entity, not Congress, no other government entity can add any requirements for the presidency other than the basic constitutional requirements, which is, you have to be 35 and you have to be a natural born American citizen, et cetera. There are some issues about having been involved in an insurrection, but those are related to the Civil War and returning Confederates from the Civil War trying to regain their seats in Congress. That's what that was related to. They tried to even apply that to Donald Trump, but the court found that they weren't inapplicable. But I think that Donald Trump is a political prisoner. Will be a political prisoner if that happens. He'll be viewed as a political prisoner. He'll be viewed as a martyr and a sympathetic figure. And again, you have to understand how angry America is right now. I mean, they just gave $95 billion more to the military-industrial complex. A report came out recently. The average bridge and tunnel in America is like 61.8 years old, or something like that. 62 years old, and it would take about $41 billion to replace everyone in the United States. And so they just found more than double of that amount of money and just handed it to the military-industrial complex. People in America are very unhappy. You can visibly see the signs of economic decay all around you, and people are looking for any other option. And since there really is no other real option, they're willing to, as you saw in Brexit, they're willing to just throw a punch at the ruling elite any way they can, and that's Donald Trump right now.
If he doesn't go to jail, say he's put on a tag and told he can't leave Trump Towers, how damaging is that to his campaign?
Again, I don't think it's damaging to his campaign at all. At this point, I don't think, one of the issues, of course, is, if let's say he's on probation or some probative period such as that, then anytime he leaves the state, if let's say he's not put on home detention, he has to notify the court anytime he leaves the state, et cetera. So there would be some issues. I don't think the people who are going to support Donald Trump are concerned whether he shows up for a rally in, Peoria or whatever the case may be. I think they have made a decision, and I think I once heard an old saying in America about how do you get elected. There's three things you got to do. Number one, turn out your base. Number two, turn out your base. Number three, turn out your base. These actions have turned out Donald Trump's base. These people, I don't care if it's raining or snowing, they'll crawl through broken glass to get to the voting booth to vote for Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the Biden people, 83% right now, want a ceasefire and can't get it. They'll be home raking leaves, and the ones that vote for him are still going to be holding their noses. When you put those two factors together, it is an obvious victory for the challenger and an obvious loss for the incumbent. We just have to be concerned with how far these people will go. Literally, I have to say it. Americans are asking, will they JFK Donald Trump? Donald Trump has said, I'll release the Epstein files, the JFK files, the 9/11 files. Do I believe that? No, but maybe the deep state will believe it. And if they believe it, we don't know how far these people will go. Who thought they'd go this far?
Brilliantly expressed. Speaking of the two cheeks of the same ass, the bipartisan blob that runs the American center of power, there's going to be a visitor coming your way by the name of Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, he's got to go somewhere, and he can't go to Europe because he'll be arrested, even in France, even in Germany. The only other place he could go is here. Netanyahu is coming your way. How is that going to impact the presidential election? To see a wanted war criminal getting umpteen standing ovations in front of the American Congress.
I think it will be sickening to the American people, but I think it's something that the American people need. They really need to see a picture, something visible that reminds them that their leaders don't represent them. That, I mean, as I said, he's despised by the incumbent party, by the constituents of the incumbent party. The leaders of the incumbent party basically worships the very ground that he walks on. I think it's something that the people in the Democratic Party need to see. They need to feel the rage and anger, and they need to understand that they are not represented, and they need to go, maybe look third party or whatever it is that they need to do. So personally, as upsetting as it is to me and infuriating as it is to me that we would bring this man here at a time when they're committing a brutal and vicious genocide, I think the reality of it is you have to, ask yourself who's committing the genocide. Is it Netanyahu? Is it Joe Biden? Is there a delineation between the two? They're using U.S. money. They're using U.S. bombs. They're using U.S. defense in the world court. They're using U.S. defense at the United Nations to get political cover and legal cover for this. In reality, yes, it is Netanyahu. But if I hand you a gun and tell you to shoot someone and you shoot someone, I think we are, conspiratorially speaking, from a legal perspective, we have equal a liability for the crime. And so to me, every time I see Joe Biden march across the stage or wander around with his hand out trying to shake the ghost of whoever, of Corn Pop or someone, I have to, at that point, think that I'm seeing a visible form of Benjamin Netanyahu, even though the physical form of him is over in Tel Aviv.
The people can forgive venality in politicians, and often do, but when they can't even make the trains run on time and they're venal, they're probably past their usefulness. So this week we had Biden announce what he said was an Israeli peace plan for a ceasefire and so prisoner exchange and so on. Biden said this was an Israeli plan. And by the way, the British Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, welcomed it as Israel's peace plan. In fact, he went further, called it an agreement. I don't know what they taught him at these expensive schools he went to, but can't be an agreement until both sides have agreed to it. But as it turns out, neither side had agreed to it. Israel denies that this is their plan. And Netanyahu says, we will not implement that plan. Did Biden just make it up, or did Netanyahu let him down? What happened there?
I think this is typical Biden administration foreign policy. If you recall, Joe Biden would go to Vladimir Putin, or he would go to Xi Jinping, and he would make some kind of agreement that they wouldn't cross some kind of a red line. And within days, Tony Blinken or Sullivan would come out and say, oh, no, we don't know what you're talking about. We're going to do this. So it has been the history, the repeated history of the Biden administration to make claims or have discussions with foreign leaders, and within days some other member of the administration acts as though they don't even know what's going on. They never heard of such a thing. I would imagine they talked to someone. The likelihood is they talked to someone in the Israeli government and they said, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's go do it. And then Joe Biden announced it, and then the other people in the Israeli government probably didn't even know about it. So this is the dysfunction of the Biden administration, and this is why the Russians, Lavrov, said that the United States is agreement incapable. How can you be capable of an agreement if the people in your government don't even know what each other is doing? And let's face it, if they told Joe Biden who said it or what, if there's no possibility that he would agree, that he would remember the details of the agreement from the time that he met with him until he made it to the microphone if it was only 10 steps away.
You mentioned Lavrov, so finally, Garland, and I'm grateful for your time as always. There's a real possibility that we are heading for all-out war between NATO and Russia. Most people in Britain don't even know that and haven't even begun to calibrate what that might mean, what that might lead to. Is there any concern in the United States that recent decisions about the right to target Russian cities with American weapons, fired maybe by Zelensky's troops, although maybe foreign mercenaries, so-called, would have to do the firing, if American weapons start turning up, killing people in Russian cities, it's game on, Garland. Do people in America know that?
You know, people in America are so brainwashed, and that they really don't. Most people in America don't have an idea that this is going on. And I think, and you're very familiar with this dynamic. One of the things that we face in America today is that there's such economic desperation. A lot of people look at America, oh, it's a rich country, and, you know, people have a lot of money. No. There is economic desperation here. And when you have people working 3 jobs, struggling to feed their families, and I think this is intentional, as you probably already know, they keep people struggling in a situation where they don't have time to be concerned about the grand schemes and about foreign policy. So a lot of Americans just, you know, they turn on the news, they get a few lies, and they go home. Those who are knowledgeable of what's going on are extremely concerned. Now, we understand that the American weapons have been used to hit Russian targets repeatedly, so this wouldn't be something new, but we understand that this could escalate. And of course, there's a significant rhetoric of sending troops to Russia, and it would only take one missile that the Russians headed to Russia that they couldn't differentiate whether or not it was nuclear, and they only had minutes to respond, that could end this whole party for all of us. And that's the sad part of it. I mean, a big question we have to ask ourselves when we're going into this next election is, and I hate to put it this way, but it's a legitimate thought, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has it, is will humanity be able to survive 4 more years of the Biden administration? And any reasonable person would give us a less than 50% chance of that, probably less than 25% chance of another 4 years of the Biden administration. In fact, right now, there are articles that the U.S. is looking at sending more nuclear subs towards China to deter China. To deter China from doing what? They use the word deter when that means we want to take an aggressive and insane military act against another country.
Colin Nixon, chilling thought, but brilliant to hear your eloquence and your vision. Thanks for joining us.